Khaman Maluach is the best prospect and the best fit. He's perfect for us. If by chance he's gone, I would trade with whoever took him. Maybe it's New Orleans, trade pick 9 and a future pick swap in 2030 for pick 7. If we need to trade a lottery protected first, I would do it. We need Maluach. Welcome back to Amateur Answers. This is the new segment on the channel where I read your comments and react to them. If you want a chance for one of your comments to be featured in next week's episode, they come out every Saturday, then make sure you comment something down below. It doesn't need to be about something in this video. Any question you have about the Raptors, the NBA, anything, comment down below. Maybe it'll get featured next week. And while you're down there, make sure you do smash that like button if you enjoy and subscribe for more Raptors content just like this. So first question here comes from Windowman9665, and it's all about Khaman Maluach. And this is under a video I did where I talked about the draft needs for the Raptors, where I identified the center, like a backup center, as the glaring hole in the Raptors roster that they could look to target somebody to fill that void in the draft. And the name that kept coming up in the comments was absolutely Khaman Maluach out of Duke. Lots of people are fans of this player, but as for trading up, is it worth it to actually trade up for this player? That's where I'm not so sure. I will give Windowman a lot of credit here because at least they've recognized what it actually takes to trade up. Like, yeah, if you really want Khaman Maluach and you're willing to trade up for him, it would cost the 9th pick, and it probably would cost a future first. That's probably how it would work. I think a lot of times, like as soon as the draft lottery happened, the Raptors the 9th pick, conversations started about trading up. I think for a lot of people who talk about trading up, they fail to recognize just how expensive it is to trade up because it probably would cost a future first. In my opinion, on this draft, there's quite a lot of talent in here. I understand like people are fans of Khaman Maluach, and so am I. But I think that trading up, like it's just a little bit too much here for a Raptors team that already feels as though this is a strong draft. Already will probably feel very confident in their own scouting and their own development. I just don't see it as a reality to trade up for them. Hasn't really typically been their MO. They've just been satisfied with where they're at, and they know they'll get a player they feel is talented enough for the position they're drafting him. So I wouldn't expect to trade up. But on the conversation of Khaman Maluach, yes, I'm a fan of him like so many others are, such as Kevin Hallamay, we'll say, says Maluach is the best talent available and a good need for fit. So talent and fit for him. If we get him, then it's a big home run for Toronto. Yeah, I kind of feel like, though, it would be a great pick for the Raptors, especially at 9. I would have been pretty satisfied, like, with still a month to go to the draft and a lot of things can change, but it felt as though, like, 7th would have been a pretty satisfying outcome even to get Khaman Maluach. But looking at the teams in this range, like, the range where Maluach may get drafted, like the first comment talked about New Orleans, a lot of these teams don't really need a center. And then obviously they could feel like, hey, he's the best talent available, but it's really tough to get a lot of centers involved in your rotation, even if it is the best talent available. So for New Orleans, who took Yves Missi last year, and Yves Missi had a good rookie season, not sure they're going to be looking there. For Brooklyn, who are 1 pick ahead of the Raptors, depend if they move on from Nick Claxton. Signs are pointing towards they might look to trade him, and if they do end up trading him, then obviously Khaman Maluach is a big draw. But I think at 9, not sure he'll be available. If he is, I would be happy as well because it would be a good pick. But I talked a lot about in that video about the draft needs, about needing to go for talent over fit. But fit does factor into talent. But Andrew Bryan 595 says this: a center, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. No question about talent. Get a center no matter what. Even if Khaman Maluach isn't available, go for somebody like Derek Queen. But like, what if somebody like Derek Queen isn't available? Are you going to reach really far for somebody else to take in that spot at 9th overall to get yourself a center? Now, I don't think Khaman Maluach and Derek Queen will both be off the board at that point. But if Maluach is available, I feel pretty happy there. If he's off the board, I could be persuaded to go in other directions as of now for Derek Queen. So I wouldn't be hell-bent necessarily on getting a center, despite the fact that that is the most glaring need with the Raptors. I say it every offseason. There's other ways to sort that position out. I say it offseason because every offseason they failed to address that need for a backup center. And for a while, they failed to address the need for a starting center. But I wouldn't be hell-bent on the position. Though it would be nice if there's a more talented, like a much more talented player, the Raptors would have to go in that direction. Next comment, Raptor_champ says, I think that's why they waived Robinson. They're going for a center. So I think what the Orlando Robinson, that we'll call it an experiment, kind of showcased us is that there was a recognition that there just wasn't enough center talent on the roster. Like, they kind of took a heave on Bruno Fernando at the start of the season. He wasn't really good enough, so they let him walk in midseason at no extra cost. Like, his guarantee was up. He wasn't guaranteed money for the rest of the season, so let Bruno Fernando go. Then they tried to kind of see if it could work with Orlando Robinson and Colin Castleton, but ended up not really working with Robinson. The reality was he just wasn't good enough. His rebounding rate for a guy of his size is really bad. Not a good enough scorer on offense, not a good enough finisher. So Raptors, yes, they did waive Robinson, and maybe that is a showcase that they want a center, but they did also sign Colin Castleton, he had 2 10-day contracts. That expired. Then they brought him back since then for the offseason. So I think they do feel the need to get a center. Maybe it is in the draft they want to address that need, but I don't think waiving Robinson showcases that's why they're going for center. I think there was a lot of other indications they would be going potentially for a center. Next comment comes from Jimbo Jenkins, 22, says, you should do a video on Maluach. I hope he's there at 9. People are quick to label him as a boom or bust, but he's going to be a good defender from day one. I think he's a lot more offensive talent than people give him credit for. And you can't teach 7'2", 7'7" wingspan. No, you can't teach that. Indeed, 2 things on this one. I feel like a lot of people are labeling Khaman Maluach as like your prototypical Masai Ujiri pick, which doesn't really make sense to me. Like Noah Songe would be that sort of, two-way athletic wing, big wingspan. Not really a center. I think the only thing Masai Ujiri like about Khaman Maluach is that maybe because Khaman Maluach is African. I don't really understand that comparison, but I just think he's a good player. And, Masai Ujiri, Bob Webster, Dan Tolzman, everyone involved in this process have a pretty keen eye for talent, as we've seen recently. But on the conversation of doing a video on Khaman Maluach, I will be doing tons of videos on individual players leading up to the draft, about guys that the Raptors have a potential of taking, to give my thoughts on them and if I believe the Raptors should take them in that position. So keep an eye out for full videos on Khaman Maluach and many others in the next month on the channel. Make sure as well you're subscribed to keep up to date with all of that great content. And why not drop a like while you're there if you haven't done so already. Now we're switching to a different video here. This is from last week's Amateur Answers Just Like This, where we discussed a variety of topics, including if tanking was the right decision overall by the Raptors, which will come up a little bit here. But the first question, which isn't related to that, comes from, oh boy, that is a long name. Let's try it. Umashanambi Hi Bahan 4912. I didn't say that well, but hopefully that's okay. It's interesting how the roster will shape out this upcoming season. We got the 9th and 39th picks in this year's draft. Assuming the 9th pick gets a standard contract, the 39th pick gets a two-way spot, there are guys we'll have to let go. I'd assume Castleton and Boucher are gone, but training camp determines that. I wouldn't call Boucher stick. Boy, I think that's a little bit rude. Boucher and Castleton, I mean, they will be candidates to leave. Like Boucher, I've said it in some videos already. Boucher's not coming back next season. The Raptors don't have enough cap space to bring him back, and he did not touch the floor in the last third of the season for the Raptors. Wanted to prioritize younger players, but even in Darko's first season, he was never keen on playing Chris Boucher. Even when Chris Boucher was playing really well this season, he was never keen on playing Chris Boucher. So why go out of your way to give money to a guy you can't afford, to sign him back for a coach who doesn't want to play him? So Boucher will be gone. Castleton as well is an easy player to discard. When guys like Colin Castleton or like AJ Lawson sign multi-year deals, it's reported as a multi-year deal, which makes fans think, 2 years, he'll be on contract for next season. Yes, to a certain degree, but typically these multi-year contracts are guarantees to the end of the season they signed the contract in. So last month of the season, and then it is non-guaranteed for next season. So if they make the roster next season, that's when the guarantee kicks in. So the incentive is on them to make the roster and get that payday. However, it's very easy for the Raptors to look at that guy and say, okay, he's non-guaranteed, no money guaranteed for the season. We want to sign this guy. We'll waive him to make room for this other guy that we're bringing in. So it won't be difficult really for the Raptors to find space to bring in more players for the roster. At The Real Truth 553 says, tanking guarantees you nothing. Your drafting selection is anyone. anyone. More important to have a stable organization that helps develop and scouts talent properly. So, first half of this, I don't agree with. Second half of this, I do agree with. Because first half of this, tanking guarantees you nothing. That's not true. Tanking for the Raptors guaranteed that the lowest they could fall in the draft lottery was 11th. Even then, that was like a less than 0.1% chance that was going to happen. So realistically, it gave them a guarantee they wouldn't fall further than 10th. Ended up going to 9th. Even the 10th pick was like a 1.3% chance, but it guarantees that you have a higher floor. So there is still incentive to tank because you don't fall as much as you could. But the second half of this, it is much more important to have a stable organization. Like right after the draft lottery, Masai Ujiri said essentially, we'll be fine. Like everyone's panicking, but Masai Ujiri's like, we'll be fine. We have a great scouting team with the Toronto Raptors. We have a great development team with the Toronto Raptors. So they have found success in a number of different positions in the draft previously, and it's starting to be recognized that the Raptors have this great development system in place. Like it's nice to have as well. The Raptors 905 is a short drive away. The OVO Athletic Center is probably like a 30-minute drive from the Paramount Fine Food Center where the Raptors 905 plays. So it's a short trip to be able to get those reps in the 905 and get those reps in the NBA. You can do double duty at time as well. Like there's a recognition the Raptors are a good, stable organization for development. And I think that's why they've had so much of these success stories. Whereas, you've got like the Phoenix Suns who have not prioritized the draft in the past and don't have a stable base for development. It's going to be a lot harder for them to find those sorts of players in the lottery compared to a team like the Raptors, who have had a bit more success, but just haven't quite had the luck on their side with the lottery on enough occasions to really take this thing off as of late. But yes, definitely agree. Having a stable organization is even more important as well to find those players, but also to be able to develop them. Next one comes from Chronix Gaming 8227. Says making the play-in and getting the 15th pick would have done us so much better. So this is in relation to tanking again, thinking that making the play-in would have been more beneficial to the Raptors. I just really disagree. I think that the 9th overall pick player has a much higher probability of being able to help the Raptors in a much larger capacity going forward. And that's just a trade-off. Like I always say, there are pros and cons to both sides of it. The pro of going to the play-in is getting that experience. And, you still get, you're only moving 6 picks down, but you still get the experience of getting those big games in the play-in game, or maybe one big game in the play-in, but you have that winning run near the end of the season, which can help your team and develop your team. But also, there's pros to the tanking, where you get a higher pick and you can move up in the draft and you give yourself a better opportunity at getting a first overall pick like Cooper Flagg. I don't really see how the 15th pick and basically losing in the first round of the play-in tournament would have been more beneficial to the Raptors. I think ultimately they made the right choice in this position, and many people do kind of agree with me here. Peter Ballantine 8248 says Toronto has had a great deal of success selecting 9th. Hall of Fame forward Tracy McGrady, 1997, 6-time All-Star DeMar DeRozan, 2009, and current starting center Jakob Poeltl, 2016, were all picked 9th by the Raptors. No way anyone could follow the 2020 version of the Raptors for tanking for a player at this level, possibly higher due to a strong draft pool. So I've seen this floating around a lot, and I love the optimism here. It's a little bit of just coincidence. The Raptors have been able to strike really well on 9th overall picks in the past. Yeah, it's good. It's a good showcase and reminder that there's talent up and down the draft for sure. It's a little bit of coincidence that they have had success with 9th overall picks, but it is a reminder. Yes, you can still find talent in these positions, and tanking increased our floor where 9th pick was a bad outcome, but in other situations, maybe 12th pick would have been an outcome, which would have been even worse for the Raptors. Next one comes from Prof. Way Newsmith. Hopefully I said that right. The Raptors' pre-Christmas schedule doomed, combined with beginning of season injuries, led to the tanking strategy. It was only then that made sense. Next year, they will hopefully have a more balanced schedule, and a better injury luck will lead to the playoffs. The Raptors' starting 5 and bench depth is 4th to 6th in the East worthy. I don't know if I'm going to go quite as far as 4th, but the East is a little bit open, but this is right. Ultimately, the Raptors didn't go into the season thinking we are going to tank. They went into the season trying to win as many games as possible and get into the playoffs, but their schedule was absolutely loaded to start the season, And there were just so many injuries that mounted up. Like RJ Barrett spent some time out. Emmanuel quickly spent a lot of time out. Scotty Barnes was dealing with a few things, such as like the eye injury. So injuries absolutely didn't help the Raptors. And in the midst of a tough schedule, they were well outside of the race for the playoffs, kind of at the trade deadline. So they made the decision to tank. That's when their schedule really lightened up, and a lot of teams started to tank, and they still had a chance to make the play-in, but they felt as though it wasn't worth it to go that far. Had they had a more successful first half of the season, they would have continued to try and make that playoff push. I do agree. Next one comes from Windowman9665. Says, still was the right move. People are so stupid. That's for tanking. We are getting an amazing player at 9. Probably Maluach, so maybe not, but maybe. So no, things went just as planned. We won't have a pick this high for years. So yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, they were looking at Maluach at 7. You might still get the same guy at 9. So in the end, it wouldn't have really factored in, where the Raptors end up lying, because they get the guy that they wanted. You have a bigger risk of missing out on that player now. But like, as for the pick, yeah, 9th hopefully is the highest pick they will have for the next while, because the idea is to be a playoff team for next season. So you won't have a lottery pick anymore. That's kind of the goal. So hopefully this is a player that can really help fill out this roster and be a part of the springboard forward for this franchise into the next seasons. Now, going a bit off topic for that one, which I like these sorts of questions. Make sure you comment them down below. It says the real foil asks, do you think Jamison Battle will be an all-time Raptors role player? So I like Jamison Battle. The shooting is obviously a big draw. His defense looked pretty good just watching him for the Raptors. Statistically, his defense was really good for the Raptors. So, as part of that, playing a lot at the end of the season against weaker opponents, maybe part of it is, but still, the stats are very promising for a player who has had this sort of meteoric rise going from an undrafted free agent to the Summer League player, to an Exhibit 10 player, to a two-way player, to a standard NBA contract player, all within a year. Like, he's done a lot in the last year, and there are a lot of traits there of somebody who can really shape into a great role player. Their shooting is obviously big, and having that defense is a big help. But there is a bit of I won't call it a logjam, but it's cluttered. The Raptors' depth chart right now is a little bit cluttered, trying to piece where guys are going to fall on the bench. But he has an opportunity to carve out a significant role with the Raptors off the bench next season. Will I go as far as to say I think he's going to be an all-time Raptors role player? I don't think so. But hey, if he's a strong role player for this season, that's more than enough for me.